If you are listening to this right now, chances are you are carrying a heavy, invisible exhaustion. You might be sitting on the edge of your bed, looking at a stack of books you haven't opened in months, or simply staring at a blank wall, feeling completely disconnected from the things that usually bring you joy. You feel too depleted to care, and the smallest tasks feel like climbing a massive mountain. It is completely okay to feel this way. Before we dive into how we navigate this heavy space together, take a slow, quiet breath. Just let the air fill your chest and let it go. I invite you to leave a simple affirmation in the comments below right now. I am allowed to rest without explanation. Let that single sentence be your anchor today. We spend so much of our lives forcing ourselves to keep running when our engines have completely run out of fuel. It is a quiet, heavy space to be in when you look at your life and realize you simply have nothing left to give to anyone, including yourself. You aren't lazy, and you haven't failed. You are just completely empty. Think about how many days you forced yourself out of bed when every cell in your body begged you to just stay still. Think about how many times you smiled and told someone you were fine because explaining how tired you truly were felt like too much work. You have been holding up a heavy ceiling for a very long time, pretending it was as light as air. But gravity always wins eventually. And right now, your hands have grown tired of holding it all up. It is a terrifying feeling when the things that used to spark a tiny bit of excitement in you now just look like chores. You see a message from a friend you love, and instead of feeling happy, you feel a wave of guilt because you don't even have the energy to type a single line back. You look at your favorite sweater or the hobby supplies sitting in the corner, and they feel like relics from a past life, a life where you actually had the capacity to care. This depletion changes the way the world looks. Everything loses its color, turning into a flat, gray landscape where every step requires an immense amount of physical and emotional effort. You start to wonder if the real you is gone forever, replaced by this hollow shell that can barely manage to keep its eyes open. But I want you to know that the emptiness you feel right now is not a permanent state of being. It is a protective wall that your system has built around you because you didn't stop when you needed to. When we refuse to listen to our quiet sighs of fatigue, our bodies and minds eventually turn those sighs into a loud, undeniable shout. That shout is the numbness you are experiencing today. It is your system stepping in and pulling the plug, saying, "No more. We cannot do this anymore." It feels like a punishment, but it is actually an act of deep self-preservation. So let the kitchen counter stay exactly as it is. Let the pending tasks wait. Do not scold yourself for the things you cannot manage today. When a reservoir is completely dry, you cannot pour a single drop from it, no matter how desperately someone asks, and no matter how much you want to give. You must first allow the rain to fall, and you must allow the ground to absorb it slowly, without rushing the process. For right now, Your only job is to acknowledge that the tank is empty, to stop blaming yourself for it, and to breathe through the stillness. You are here. You are surviving this heavy moment, and that alone is more than enough. We live in a world that praises constant movement. We are told that if we stop, we fall behind. So, we push through the fatigue, ignoring the warning signs our minds and bodies are sending us. You might find yourself sitting in your parked car after a long shift, unable to open the door and walk inside because the transition requires an energy you don't possess. The engine is off, the dashboard lights have gone dark, and you are just suspended in the quiet space between where you were and where you are supposed to go next. Or maybe you are staring at a blank document on your computer screen, the cursor blinking repeatedly, feeling a strange numbness where your focus used to be. That little blinking line feels like a heartbeat, mocking the stillness inside your own mind, demanding something you simply cannot give. We treat ourselves like machines that can run indefinitely without maintenance. But human beings are not built for constant acceleration. When we try to outrun our limits, burnout catches up to us, forcing a halt that we could have taken intentionally if we had only known how to stop. Think about how many times you have looked at the days ahead and felt a quiet sense of dread. Not because you dislike your life, but because you simply do not know how you will find the strength to carry your own weight through it all. We have been conditioned to believe that our worth is directly tied to our output. We measure the quality of our days by how much we crossed off a list, how many projects we completed, or how many people we managed to please. We look at rest as a reward that must be earned after every ounce of our vitality has been wrung out, rather than a fundamental right that keeps us whole. This is the great illusion of our modern lives, the belief that if we just run a little faster, work a little harder, and push through just one more week, we will finally reach a peaceful plateau where we can safely pause. But that plateau never arrives on its own. Instead, the horizon just keeps moving further away, and we keep accelerating to catch it. You find yourself picking up your phone just to put it down, looking around a room, trying to remember what you walked in for, or feeling your chest tighten when someone asks you a simple question about tomorrow. Your system is constantly playing catch-up, trying to process yesterday's stress while you are already diving headfirst into today's demands. It is an exhausting way to live, always leaning forward into the next moment, never fully permitted to inhabit the space you are currently standing in. We ignore the heavy eyelids in the afternoon. We ignore the way our patience grows thinner and thinner until we are snapping at the people we care about most. We ignore the dull ache in our shoulders and the persistent fog in our thoughts, writing them off as temporary inconveniences to be solved with another cup of coffee or a bit more discipline. We tell ourselves that everyone else is managing just fine, so we should be able to do the same. But behind closed doors, so many of us are running on the exact same fumes, terrified to be the first one to admit that the pace is breaking us. When you are caught in this loop of constant acceleration, slowing down feels incredibly dangerous. It triggers a false sense of alarm, making you feel as though your entire life will unravel if you take your foot off the gas for even an hour. But the truth is, the unraveling is already happening internally. Burnout is not a sudden crash. It is the slow, quiet erosion of your well-being that happens when you refuse to pause. Honoring your exhaustion isn't a sign of weakness or a declaration of defeat. It is a necessary, courageous act of truth-telling. It is looking at the relentless speed of the world around you and softly saying, "I cannot keep up with this, and I am no longer going to punish myself for being human." For a long time, you probably wore your ability to handle everything as a badge of honor. You were the one who always said yes, the one who took on extra responsibilities, the one who kept it all together when things fell apart. This was your persona, the face you showed the world to prove you were capable, strong, and reliable. Carl Jung once observed that the persona is a complicated system of relations between individual consciousness and society. Fittingly, a kind of mask, designed on the one hand to make a definite impression upon others, and, on the other, to conceal the true nature of the individual. When burnout hits, that mask shatters. The armor becomes too heavy to wear, and suddenly you are left face to face with the exhaustion you were trying so hard to hide from everyone else, including yourself. Think about how much energy it took to build that armor in the first place. It didn't happen overnight. You crafted it, piece by piece, every time you took on a task that wasn't yours to bear. Every time you swallowed your own frustration to keep the peace. And every time you told yourself that your own fatigue didn't matter, as long as everyone else was taken care of. You became the reliable one, the strong friend, the person who never complains and always delivers. People started to expect it from you. And worse, you started to expect it from yourself. It became your identity. You felt that if you weren't the one fixing, doing, or achieving, then you wouldn't have a place at the table. The armor kept you safe from the fear of letting people down, but it also locked you inside a prison of your own making. Now, you are sitting in the quiet aftermath of that collapse. You look at the pieces of the person you used to be, and you don't even have the strength to pick them up. When someone asks you for a favor, the simple act of saying no feels like an earthquake inside your chest. You are terrified that if they see how tired you really are, they will walk away. You worry that your worth was only tied to what you could provide, and now that you have nothing left to give, you are invisible. This is the painful reality of the mask splitting open. It forces you to look at the parts of yourself you ignored while you were busy being strong for the rest of the world. But there is a strange, quiet mercy in this breaking. The armor wasn't just protecting you from the world, it was keeping the world from seeing your true humanity. It was preventing you from receiving the love and support that you so freely handed out to everyone else. You cannot be loved for who you truly are if you only allow people to see the indestructible mask. This deep depletion is telling you that the heavy metal suit has outlived its purpose. It served you when you needed to survive, when you needed to prove yourself, or when you felt unsafe showing your vulnerability. But you cannot grow in a suit of armor. You cannot breathe deeply when your chest is restricted by the expectations of who you think you are supposed to be. Letting the armor fall feels like an exposure, like walking into a cold wind without a coat. It is terrifying to let people see your hesitation, your quietness, and your empty hands. But it is also the only way you will ever find true rest. You do not need to be the anchor for every ship in the harbor. You do not need to carry the weight of every problem just to prove that you matter. The truth is, you are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to be fragile. You are allowed to sit in the ruins of your old, busy life and realize that you are still completely worthy of care, even when you are doing absolutely nothing at all. When you reach the point of deep depletion, a harsh inner critic often wakes up. It tells you that you should be doing more, that others are handling their lives better, or that you are letting people down. You look at a simple task, like returning a call from a close friend or organizing a kitchen drawer, and you judge yourself for not having the strength to do it. Healing begins when we transition away from this self-judgment and move toward curiosity. Instead of asking, "Why can't I just get this done?" try asking yourself, "What is my exhaustion trying to tell me right now?" Your fatigue is not an enemy to be conquered. It is a profound piece of communication from your system, signaling that the current way of living is no longer sustainable. Think about how cruelly we speak to ourselves when we are at our lowest. If a loved one came to you, weeping from sheer exhaustion, unable to lift their head from the table because they had worked themselves to the bone, you would never look at them and say, "You are failing. Look at how messy your life is. Why can't you just pull yourself together?" You wouldn't do that. You would wrap a blanket around their shoulders, pull up a chair, and tell them to sleep for as long as they needed. Yet, when you are the one sitting in that dark space of total depletion, your first instinct is often to turn a weapon on yourself. You scan your life for all the things you are falling short on, using your remaining ounces of mental energy to build a case against your own worth. This judgment acts like a secondary weight. The exhaustion itself is heavy enough, but the shame of being exhausted is what truly keeps you pinned to the floor. Shame tells you that your fatigue is a character flaw, a sign that you are weaker or less capable than the people around you. It makes you hide your struggles, which only isolates you further in your pain. But what if we paused that trial? What if, just for a moment, we decided to drop the gavel and stop acting as the judge, jury, and executioner of our own tired minds? Shifting to curiosity means changing the entire tone of your internal dialogue. It means looking at your inability to focus, your lack of motivation, and your heavy limbs not as crimes, but as evidence. When you feel a wave of anxiety because you can't bring yourself to answer an invitation, curiosity steps in and softly asks, "What part of this invitation feels threatening to my peace right now? When you find yourself staring at a simple task for an hour without moving, curiosity notes, look at how much protection my mind is trying to provide me by keeping me still. This transition softens the edges of your suffering. It takes the teeth out of the criticism. When you approach yourself with curiosity, you create a safe space for the truth to come out. You begin to realize that you aren't avoiding your life because you have suddenly stopped caring about everything. You are avoiding it because your nervous system is completely overwhelmed. The numbness is not a lack of empathy. It is a fuse that has blown to prevent a fire. By treating your burnout as an important messenger instead of a failure, you finally allow yourself to understand what you actually need to heal. You stop fighting the tiredness and start listening to it. And in that quiet shift, the path forward begins to clear. Being gentle with yourself means lowering the bar completely when you are in the thick of burnout. It means allowing yourself to have days where success is measured simply by existing. You don't need to optimize your morning routine. You don't need to learn a new skill. And you don't need to use your downtime to plan your next professional move. If all you did today was move from the bed to the couch, that is enough. When you are deeply depleted, your nervous system is working overtime just to keep you regulated. Pushing yourself to perform during these moments only extends the recovery time. Give yourself permission to experience days with as little internal and external friction as possible. Think about what it truly means to live a day without friction. It means looking at the world around you and deciding that just for today, you are not going to fight against the current. If you wake up and feel a heavy weight on your chest, a frictionless day means you don't force yourself to do a long workout just because a calendar says you should. It means if your mind can only handle staring out the window at the sky for an hour, you let it stare. We are so used to creating friction in our own minds by constantly battling our reality. We feel tired, so we fight the tiredness with anger. We feel sad, so we try to force ourselves to feel happy. We create an internal war every single time we refuse to accept exactly where we are standing. Imagine a day where you call a complete truce with yourself. A day where every single decision you make is filtered through the simplest question: what requires the absolute least amount of effort right now? It might mean choosing the softest, most worn-out shirt in your drawer because the texture feels comforting. It might mean eating something simple that requires no cooking and no thought, just because it keeps you nourished. It means letting the missed calls stay missed and letting the unread messages wait without a single ounce of guilt attaching itself to your mind. When you are deeply depleted, every single interaction, every choice, and every expectation feels like sandpaper against an open wound. The world is loud, fast, and demanding, and your skin feels too thin to protect you from it. By intentionally choosing a frictionless day, you are building a soft, padded room around your spirit. You are creating a sanctuary where nothing can poke, prod, or pull at you. You are telling your exhausted mind that it is safe to come down from the high alert it has been living on for months. Many people fear that if they allow themselves even one frictionless day, they will lose their momentum forever. They worry that the laziness will take root, and they will never want to get back up. But that fear is a lie told by your exhaustion. True rest does not make you weak. It restores your strength. When you stop fighting the reality of your fatigue, you finally stop leaking the tiny bit of energy you have left. You let the dust settle. You allow your nervous system to realize that the emergency is over. So, let today be quiet. Let the world spin without your help for a little while. Give yourself the profound, beautiful gift of a day where nothing is expected of you, and where simply breathing in and breathing out is considered a massive victory. When we ignore our limits for too long, the parts of ourselves that we have pushed aside begin to demand attention. The fatigue we feel isn't just physical. It is an emotional and psychological depletion. We have spent months, perhaps years, neglecting our own primary needs in order to meet the expectations of our environments. This is where we must look inward and acknowledge the hidden aspects of our exhaustion. Carl Jung noted that in every one of us there is another whom we do not know. The person you don't know right now might be the one who desperately needs quiet, boundaries, and protection from the noise of the world. Listening to that hidden side means accepting that your capacity has changed, and that change deserves your respect. Think about who that stranger inside of you really is. For a long time, you only acknowledged the version of yourself that was useful, the version that produced, smiled, and carried the heavy loads. But while that productive self was getting all the praise, another part of you was sitting in the dark, growing weaker and quieter, starved of attention. It was the part of you that needed to cry when things were hard, the part that wanted to say, "I am scared, and I don't know what I'm doing," the part that just wanted to sit still without being judged. Because you hid that vulnerable side away to keep moving forward, it had to find a way to make you listen. It did that by turning off the lights and locking the doors. Your burnout is that forgotten part of you finally making its presence known. Meeting these deep, hidden needs requires a completely different kind of honesty. It means looking past the surface level of your fatigue. It is not just about getting more sleep or sitting on the couch. It is about figuring out where you are leaking your soul. You have to ask yourself what you are truly starving for. Are you starving for silence because your days are filled with the constant demands of others? Are you starving for space because you have crammed every hour of your life with obligations? Are you starving for validation that has nothing to do with your achievements? When you sit quietly with your depletion, you begin to see that your deepest need might simply be protection. You need someone to stand at the door of your life and protect you from the relentless expectations of the world. And right now, you have to be that person for yourself. It is incredibly hard to pivot your focus inward when you have been trained to always look outward, watching for the needs of everyone else. You might feel a wave of guilt or discomfort when you start centering your own recovery. You might feel like you are being selfish, but acknowledging your true capacity is the ultimate act of respect. You cannot keep treating yourself like an afterthought. The stranger inside you, the tired, fragile one you have ignored for so long, is not an enemy trying to ruin your life. They are a part of you that wants to survive. They are begging you to stop treating your body like a disposable tool and start treating it like a home. When you finally stop running and turn around to meet that hidden, exhausted part of yourself, you don't find a failure. You find a human being who has been carrying far too much for far too long, just waiting for you to notice, waiting for you to say, "I see you now, and I am finally going to take care of you." One of the hardest parts of being burned out is realizing you have to say no to things you want to say yes to. When a colleague asks for help, or a family member invites you to a gathering, your instinct might be to agree out of habit or guilt. But when you are too depleted to care, saying yes to others means saying no to your own recovery. It feels like navigating through a thick fog where every decision requires immense effort. Setting boundaries during burnout isn't about being selfish. It is about survival. It is telling the world and yourself that your remaining energy is sacred and must be preserved for healing. You are allowed to protect your peace, even if it disappoints someone else. Think about how heavy that fog truly feels when you are deeply exhausted. When someone approaches you with a simple request, your mind doesn't process it normally. Instead, the words seem to travel through water, and the thought of having to formulate a response, find a solution, or show up for them feels like an physical weight pressing down on your chest. You want to be kind. You want to be the helpful, loving person you have always been. But your hands are completely empty. If you give away the tiny speck of energy you have left, you will have nothing to keep yourself anchored. Yet, the habit of choosing others over yourself is so deeply ingrained that saying no feels like tearing a piece of your own skin away. We often think boundaries are loud, aggressive walls that we build with anger. But when you are in the thick of burnout, you don't even have the energy to be angry. The boundaries you need right now are quiet, soft, and protective. They are a gentle closure of the door. They sound like saying, "I would love to help you, but I just don't have the capacity right now." Or even simpler, "I can't do that today." It is letting an invitation sit on the table without feeling like you have to invent a complicated, dramatic excuse just to justify your need to rest. Your exhaustion is your excuse. Your humanity is your justification. The hardest part of setting these limits is sitting with the discomfort of letting someone down. When you change the rules of how you interact with the world, the people around you might feel confused or hurt. They are used to the version of you that always finds a way, the version that sacrifices their own comfort so that everyone else can be happy. When you stop doing that, there is a quiet shift. You might feel a terrible wave of guilt, wondering if you are a bad person, a bad friend, or a bad worker. But you have to ask yourself, why is it acceptable to disappoint yourself every single day just to avoid disappointing someone else? When you are walking through the fog of fatigue, your boundaries act as a protective railing. They keep you from wandering off the edge into a total collapse. Every time you say no to an extra demand, you are building a small sanctuary around your remaining strength. You are creating a space where your body can finally stop reacting to external pressures and start turning inward. You don't need to explain the depth of your tiredness to anyone for your boundaries to be valid. You don't need to prove how broken you feel just to earn the right to step back. Choosing your own healing over someone else's convenience is a quiet, holy act of self-preservation. It is the moment you finally decide that your life, your health, and your peace are worth defending. It is the moment you finally decide that your life, your health, and your peace are worth defending. Recovery from deep burnout doesn't happen through grand gestures or sudden transformations. It happens in tiny, almost imperceptible moments of reclamation. It is the feeling of warm water on your hands while washing a single cup, the texture of a soft blanket against your skin, or the sound of rain against the window pane. When the big picture feels overwhelming and bleak, pull your focus in tightly. Look only at the next 5 minutes. Find one small thing that demands absolutely nothing from you, and let yourself experience it fully. These micro moments of comfort act as tiny drops of water falling into a parched reservoir, slowly rebuilding your system from the inside out. Think about how much pressure we place on ourselves to make big, sweeping changes when we are unhappy or tired. We think we need a massive lifestyle shift, a long vacation, or a completely new direction to fix the emptiness inside us. But when you are truly depleted, the thought of planning something big just feels like another heavy weight on your back. Your mind cannot process large changes right now, and it shouldn't have to. The path out of total exhaustion is built out of much smaller, gentler pieces. It is built out of the quiet things you can do without leaving your room, things that don't require you to perform, think, or be anyone special. Imagine stripping away all your expectations for the future and just looking at what is right in front of you. It could be the way the morning light creates a soft pattern on the floor, or the simple taste of a warm piece of toast. It might be the relief of changing into your most comfortable clothes at the end of a long day, feeling the restriction leave your body as the fabric softens against you. In the past, you probably rushed right through these moments, treating them as background noise while your mind raced toward the next task. But when you are burned out, these tiny details become your sanctuary. They are the only things that are small enough for your tired spirit to hold on to. When you allow yourself to fully inhabit a single, small pleasure, you are quietly telling your brain that it is safe to stop fighting. You are breaking the spell of the constant urgency that broke you in the first place. You are saying, for the next 2 minutes, nothing else exists except this quiet moment. You don't have to fix your career. You don't have to mend your relationships. And you don't have to figure out how you are going to handle next week. All you have to do is feel the cool air coming through an open window, or listen to the steady, rhythmic ticking of a clock in a quiet room. These tiny pleasures might seem insignificant when compared to the massive mountain of fatigue you are facing. You might think, how is sitting with a warm cup of water going to fix my life? But healing from deep depletion is not about fixing everything all at once. It is about slowing down the bleeding of your energy. It is about creating tiny pockets of peace where your nervous system can rest, even if it is just for a few seconds. Each time you let yourself enjoy a small comfort without judging yourself for resting, you are putting a tiny grain of sand back on the side of your well-being. Over time, those grains add up. They remind you that the world can be a gentle place, that you are allowed to enjoy existing without producing anything, and that piece by piece, drop by drop, you can slowly find your way back to yourself. As you begin to slow down and accept your depletion, you start the process of integration. You begin to understand that you cannot split yourself into the productive version that deserves love and the tired version that deserves criticism. Both are fundamentally you. Carl Jung wrote that, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." Right now, you can choose to become someone who listens to their pain instead of running from it. Burnout is a painful checkpoint, but it is also an invitation to rebuild your life on a foundation of true self-compassion rather than superficial achievements. It forces you to integrate your vulnerabilities with your strengths. Think about how long you have lived in a state of internal division. You created a rule book for yourself where only the parts of you that were strong, energetic, and helpful were allowed into the light. The moments you felt weak, the days you needed to weep, or the times you just couldn't find the motivation to move were treated like flaws that needed to be hidden or punished. You rejected your own tiredness, viewing it as a betrayal by your body or a failure of your will. But integration means ending that internal civil war. It means looking at your exhaustion, your sadness, and your empty hands and saying, "This too is a part of who I am, and it belongs here just as much as my strength does." Imagine the relief of no longer having to fight half of your own nature. When you are deeply depleted, trying to force yourself to be happy or productive is like trying to paint over a cracked wall without repairing the foundation first. The cracks will always show through eventually. Burnout is the moment the structure demands a deeper repair. It is a harsh stop, yes, but it is also a moment of radical honesty. It strips away the superficial layers of who you thought you had to be, leaving you with the raw, honest truth of who you are right now. In this quiet space, you have the opportunity to change the way you relate to yourself from this day forward. To integrate means to gather up all the scattered, neglected pieces of your story and hold them with kindness. It means recognizing that the version of you that is currently sitting in a room, too exhausted to return a message, is the exact same person who accomplished great things in the past. Your exhaustion does not erase your worth, and your stillness does not diminish your value. You do not have to wait until you are fully healed and firing on all cylinders to love yourself again. The self-compassion you practice today, right in the middle of your breakdown, is the very glue that will hold you together as you slowly rebuild. This journey is about changing what you choose to become. You can choose to become someone who no longer trades their well-being for approval. You can choose to become someone who values peace just as much as progress. When you stop looking at your burnout as a shameful detour and start viewing it as a necessary chapter of your growth, the healing truly begins. You start to see that your vulnerability is not the opposite of your strength. It is the foundation of it. By accepting your limits, you protect your heart from being broken by the same expectations over and over again. You are learning to walk through the world as a whole person, flawed, tired, capable, and deeply human, all at the very same time. As we bring this reflection to a close, remember that healing from burnout is not a linear path. There will be days when you feel a spark of your old energy return, followed by days where you feel just as heavy as you do right now. Do not let the slow pace discourage you. You are undoing patterns of overextension that took years to build, and that process takes time. Be gentle with every step, no matter how small or hesitant it feels. You are worth the time it takes to heal. You are worth the rest you are taking. And you are entirely enough just as you are in this very moment. Think about how unfair it is to expect yourself to wake up tomorrow completely cured, just because you decided to try being kind to yourself today. You cannot rush the mending of a heart and mind that have been pushed to their absolute limits for months or years. When you have spent so much time operating at a high speed, your body needs a long period of quiet stabilization before it feels safe enough to truly open up again. There will be mornings when you wake up feeling a tiny bit lighter, and you might think, finally, the fog has lifted. But then, by the afternoon, the heaviness might creep back in, wrapping around your shoulders like a cold blanket. When that happens, please do not despair. The return of the fatigue is not a sign that you are moving backward. It is just your system reminding you to keep the pace slow. Imagine a path where there is no finish line, no clock ticking in the background, and no one standing at the end waiting to grade your performance. On this path, you are allowed to walk as slowly as you need to. If you need to stop and sit by the side of the road for a week, you can do that. If you can only manage to take 2 small steps forward today before needing to rest. Those 2 steps are a monumental achievement. We have to unlearn the toxic idea that progress must always be visible, constant, and fast. True growth often happens in the dark, quiet spaces where it looks like nothing is happening at all. It happens when you choose to stay still, instead of forcing a movement you aren't ready for. As you move forward from this moment, try to leave behind the heavy expectations of who you used to be. The person you were before the burnout was someone who ran on exhaustion, someone who traded their peace for validation, and someone who didn't know how to say no. You do not need to become that person again. You are building someone new, someone who knows the value of their own energy, someone who protects their boundaries with quiet strength, and someone who understands that resting is an act of courage. Let the world rush by if it wants to. Let others hurry toward their goals at a frantic pace if that is what they choose. Your journey is yours alone, and it deserves its own unique timeline. When you feel the familiar panic rising, the fear that you are falling behind or letting life pass you by, take a deep breath and bring your awareness back to your feet. Look at the ground right beneath you. You are exactly where you need to be. You are surviving. You are learning to listen to your body. And you are practicing the beautiful art of self-preservation. Be incredibly gentle with your fragile, healing heart. You are doing the deeply exhausting work of reclaiming your life from the inside out, and you have all the time in the world to get to where you are going. We have journeyed together through the heavy landscapes of exhaustion, through the breaking of old armor, and into the soft spaces where healing finally begins. If you are still here, listening to these final words, it means you have allowed yourself the rare grace of pausing. You have given yourself permission to sit with your tiredness instead of running away from it. That alone is a massive shift, a beautiful declaration that you are ready to treat yourself differently. Before we part ways, and you step back into the rhythm of your life, I want us to seal this moment together. I invite you to leave one final, deeply personal affirmation in the comments below. My peace is worth protecting, and my rest is already earned. Write it down not just as a comment, but as a gentle promise to the person you are becoming. Let those words stay there as a permanent marker of the day you decided to stop fighting your own body. Look back at the path that brought you to this moment. For so long, you believed that your primary purpose was to keep going, no matter how much pain you were in. You thought that being strong meant never breaking down, never saying no, and never showing a single sign of vulnerability. But as you stand in the quiet sanctuary of the present, you can finally see that the breakdown wasn't a failure of your strength. It was the birth of your honesty. It was the moment your spirit stood up for itself and said, "No more." The emptiness you felt wasn't a void meant to punish you. It was a clean slate, a quiet clearance of all the heavy obligations that were never yours to carry in the first place. As you step forward into tomorrow, the world will still be loud. The pressure to hurry, to achieve, and to overextend yourself will still be waiting at the door. But you are returning to that world with a secret. You now know that you carry an invisible boundary around your peace. You know that you have the right to look at a demanding situation and quietly say, "I do not have the capacity for this today." You know that a day spent doing nothing but breathing and resting is not a wasted day, but a sacred investment in your survival. You do not have to prove your worth to anyone by running yourself into the ground ever again. When you look down at your hands now, I hope you see them differently. They are no longer hands that must frantically grasp at achievements or hold up the weight of everyone else's expectations. They are hands that are allowed to be open, relaxed, and empty. They are hands that can hold a warm cup, wrap a soft blanket around your shoulders, or simply rest quietly on your lap. You are learning to inhabit your life rather than manage it. You are learning that you are a human being, not a resource to be used up until there is nothing left. Take this newly found gentleness with you like a quiet companion. On the days when the old habits of judgment try to creep back into your mind, remember to pivot toward curiosity. On the days when the fog of fatigue rolls in, remember to honor the need for a completely frictionless day. And in the moments when the big picture feels too overwhelming to face, pull your focus in tightly. Look only at the next 5 minutes and reclaim one tiny pleasure that asks absolutely nothing of you. Piece by piece, drop by drop, you are filling your reservoir again. But this time, you are filling it for yourself, not for the consumption of the world. You are entirely enough, exactly as you are right now, in this very room, in this very state of exhaustion. You do not need to be fixed, because you are not broken. You are just beautifully, deeply tired. Go gently into the rest that is waiting for you. Walk forward at your own pace. Protect your boundaries with a quiet fierceness. And never forget that the most courageous thing you can ever do is to love yourself enough to stop